Is there people out there? I don't want to look like I'm looking.
Hey, good morning. Welcome back. Our next presenter is Larry Warren. Now, I think that most of you in the room probably know Larry, but briefly, we last had him here 10 years ago, a couple of years after the publication of his groundbreaking book, Left at Eastgate. Now, a lot of stuff has happened, and over the years, more and more witnesses to the Rendlesham incident have come forward. But the reason that anybody knows anything about it at all is Larry, okay? Larry blew the whistle and Larry wrote the book. And we're going to get a chance to hear from him again this morning with another overview, injecting all of the new material. And later on, he'll be joined by Gary Hasseltine, who is going to add another little bit of pieces to the puzzle. So it's going to be a great ride. Please welcome Larry Warren.
Hi, brother. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. You awake? Oh. You know, Jimi Hendrix opened the last day of Woodstock in the morning. So let's see if I can light a fire under your butts today, just like he did. Man, anyway, you know, it is an honor to be here. This is absolutely unexpected. I came out here to help build this show, hang out with some good brothers like Ron Williams, who lost his dear wife, Dee, but she's still around, and hang out with this great crew, the Browns, all of you. I have run into friends I haven't seen in many years. Some of them are part of this black hole Disneyland thing called Rendlesham Forest. And it's been an honor. It's been unexpected, and I didn't come thinking I'd be doing this. So let's see if I can bring you up to date on what is probably the most vital military UFO incident in history. That's no offense to Roswell, but this one, we're still here, most of us, and we can take it to court. The young end of this case, the low end, I mean, I was 19 when this happened, and we're rolling on 50. So the only thing I ever tried to do was keep it alive. It's come and gone. Researchers, I have 27 years this year as a public person, which I did not seek out in this field for the sole purpose of picking up chicks. No. What it really was about was keeping this thing alive when even the UFO community didn't want to. Or they had their fill, or they wrote their books and went off to whatever else, the next case. This isn't a case, it's a story of human beings that started a work day or were a certain age and were never the same again, ever. It's not the Larry Warren story, but I was the only guy you could go to, because everyone else was kind of had other things to do. Again, it's an honor to be here and speak for the Browns, for you, see old friends, to help build this thing. And I know some changes are coming, but Bob needs a rest. So support what the new direction is, because the good tradition will continue. Again, I'm very honored you all woke up early. Ron Williams and I have been sharing a room with a ghost or an alien or some weird thing. Yeah. You wouldn't believe this thing, turning lights on, I don't know. Why would a ghost be in a casino? But it is. There's something really bad, so we haven't slept good. Ron goes, when you leave, brother, tomorrow, I'm going to check it out 7 hours before I'm supposed to go. Let's get on with this thing. We, December 1980, and I'm going to assume all of you know about Rendlesham to one degree or another. It used to be called Bentwaters, but the English got a hold of it and called it Rendlesham, and now that's what it is. Who knew? We didn't know the name of this forest. It was a 3-night event. I've said that for nearly 30 years. I've seen it changed, I've seen it condensed, I've seen my story changed, I've seen that I changed my story. You know what happens to witnesses in this stuff. Well, I never changed my story, ever. I wrote one book, here it is. We got ripped off on it, but a lot of people read it. It was a Times of London bestseller. It wasn't about the money, I put more into it than I'll ever see, we just wanted what we earned. I used to be real pissed off about this thing, and as I get older, I don't want a heart attack over it, but I want to still be a solution, part of the solution. This is the real deal. This is not a made-up thing, a lighthouse, a cart on fire with burning cow manure. That was last summer, that came out. Yeah, they keep going, you know, they think the public are stupid. And now I would have to say worldwide this thing is known by just the general public. I mean, they know. If you do not know about these events, sadly this morning you're going to really not get a chance to hear what I went through. To yourself to check it out. Buy this book. That's the only version I got to support because I wrote it with Peter Robbins. Steal this book. Go to your library and check it out. Support your local library. But read it. And to the detractors that I've seen hit, you know, the internet, back in the old days, it was, I knew what I was getting into with this. Betty Andreasen said, oh, you're going to catch a world of shit. Well, she was right. But someone had to do it. And it just, unfortunately, or fortunately, was me to keep it alive. Funny enough, if I'm anything, I'm an advocate for witnesses to this phenomenon, not just the guys at Rendlesham Forest. Many are waiting in the wings now to come forward. A lot of things are happening. But this is a very fractious pursuit. Everyone has their own views. We're all human beings. We have different backgrounds, different experiences in life. But if I'm anything, and if I'm remembered as anything, when I check out, take the dirt nap, hello? That's that ghost. What I hope I'm remembered for is that I stood up for the people that did not have the ability to do what I'm doing and what other people. I'm not a researcher, never wanted to be one. What happened to me is not a case, it was an experience. Never lied about it, never made money on it, ever, never. I mean, you know, we don't make money in this stuff. It is what it is, so let's roll. Happy birthday, Janet, you devil. I want to just say that, she knows who she is. When I was a kid in the 70s in high school, and we have our high school reunion this year, our 30th, and I'm seeing how old everybody looks on the internet there. Shocks me because I think of them as then. I was the type guy in school, I'm not a real big guy, but I was a guy that go after bullies. I was a bully killer. And I don't like that in life. I don't like people getting rat-packed and all that. And I was very honored to see people that maybe didn't have a great time in high school who did. Rah-rah. No. I was in rock bands. It was Cheech and Chong days, baby. It was good. It's the truth, man, you know. We lived. And I've been very honored to get emails like, you know, I was overweight or I couldn't play football and I couldn't do this. That's all they're going to do with this reunion, talk about the big game in '78. I missed that. I was at a keg party in the woods. But they say, I've heard this, thank you, you're always good to me, you know, and that's real nice to hear. And I think that kind of trait in me kind of stood up, kind of carried on into my young life. You know, when you're 19, if you have children, you know everything. You don't know nothing. But I don't like bullies. And some real heavy bullies got involved in this thing I'm going to tell you about. 3 nights of events, December 1980. Christmas time. First night, 3 guys go out. John Burroughs, Ed Cabanas-Sack, and Jim Peniston. I'm not going to go into all this. This is for them to talk about, and it's about time to get up here and start doing it. Earn it. They had an amazing experience. You can research it, check it out. These people are now starting to talk, thank God. Jim Peniston saw something, symbols. I mean, I paint. I started when I was 40. and I do little preliminaries. But here's a picture, a preliminary I did based on symbols that Jim Penniston drew. There's nothing I ever saw. So somebody tell me, what was the date of the first night's event? No, you're out. What was the date of the first night's event? Okay, here's another one. We're in a casino. Let's do this. It's like Wheel of Fortune. Who was our wing commander on RAF Bentwaters? Stand up, woman. This better not be on eBay at the end of the day. I heard you. I'll catch up with you in a minute. Thank you. It's symbols. They're there. Pass them around, but give them back to her. She's a spook. Now, at the end of the day, she'll mess you. All this happened. Second night over flights. We had, well, I'm going to bring a guest up very soon. I have a lot to cover in very short time. I wing in this. Second night, this or that happened. Third night, I'm involved. It's the night Halt makes his tape. Halt's further away. This was the Disneyland on Acid night. This is the night we did have a non-human presence. We did. I've been saying it for almost 30 years now. I don't know where it's from, what it's about, but I saw the reaction to it by our government. I went through a debriefing, not an underground base with an alien, and no one fixed the spaceship and all the things that have been said over the years, because I sure didn't say them. But they were scared, and they got heavy, man. They brought stuff in, and they sure messed our game up. It's a long story. You can research, you can read books, you can read millions of versions. If you want mine, steal this book, just like Jerry Rubin used to say. Steal it. Not this one, though. I stole it from a friend of mine. I don't even own it. So, as time went on, how did I get public with this? I was a post-traumatic stress basket case. Started to really mess with my family. I got out there. I met this girl, Betty Andreasen, through a newspaper article. She's kind of famous. And then they turned me on to CAUSE, Citizens Against UFO Secrecy. And they said, and this guy, Larry Foss, who was a policeman, said, I have a bit of a cold, forgive me, that we can file on this and get, see if we can get documents. And I'm like, yeah, right, sure you will. Sure enough, after numerous denials, out came, because of my information I provided, the Halt memo. Soon after that, and then this thing popped and it was big, and we sent a document to England, and certain researchers and things over there sold it for £25,000, 1983 money, folks, to the News of the World tabloid. We sent it as a courtesy. Righteous. Hope they spent it well. So anyway, so the thing popped in a big tabloid in England, and so therefore it was in the silly farmland for a while. But to put the case on the map. We moved forward. I've been to Japan. I've been around the world with the thing, simply to keep it alive. I never expected any of this to come out at all. By Antonio Huneeus, who's with this new organization that's assuming this conference. Tony's been around since day one. He's throughout the book. I've interacted with Mr. Philip Klass, just as my dear friend Travis Walton did. A hero, by the way. And Phil Klass called me a drug-addicted hippie to a newsman. And that, out came the tape recorder, and he had this hat like from Kojak or the Night Stalker. I don't know if anyone's old enough. And there's a picture of me, like, it looks like I'm surfing at him, in D.C. And he's, baby. So Phil was great, and he invited me on his boat in Chesapeake Bay. And I was a little bit nervous about sailing anywhere with that cat. But, he pissed me off, and so over the ensuing years, until he died, if you went through Phil Klass's possessions, because he never told anyone, I made sure every 3 months on the date to send him a get well soon card. True. Signed, Larry. Love, Larry. All the best. Thanks for everything. So I think that I wigged that dude out. He said, this guy's a crazy mother. He didn't mess with me anymore, but he got lots of greeting cards from me. I also sent him Christmas cards, but I won't say why. Shalom. No offense. At the end of the day, I like to play with their heads too, because they sure like to play with ours. Anyway, as time went on, 1986 came along. I was married to this poor soul named Cindy. And she's not from all this. I'm not from a family with UFOs, though my mother had a few, and I had a few things happen. And Whitley Strieber, you might know that name, said to me, I knew him before Communion came out. He was looking around at things, and he said, you should write a book. And I'd been in many others at that point. And I said, write a book? How do you do that? I was just no idea. So the title came to my head, Left at Eastgate, and then I started writing it, but I realized I needed an objective voice. I ain't that dummy, I needed someone to kind of measure it out. And then came in Peter Robbins, who I re-met in 1987 at the MUFON deal down in Washington, D.C., where I was actually thrown off stage because I guess I didn't fit the MUFON charter. And Walt Andrus, man, that guy was getting heavy, and I'm like, step off, dude. And he's lurking, he's coming closer, and I'm like, I'm reading. I had to do a paper, and I can't type or anything. I'm like, what do you want? Remember Jackie Mason on the Ed Sullivan? And he's like, Ed's he didn't work in show business for years because Ed's like, your time's up, and Jackie's like, well, what's he doing? And Ed thought he flipped him off. So he was blacklisted. So I'm seeing Walt, and I'm like, what? Who was there? Was anyone there? And so I said, look, and he goes, you must stop, MUFON doesn't approve. Great, you invited me. So I said, anyone wants to hear the rest of this crazy thing, I'll go outside. And I emptied the entire building, and I did my best work out of these buildings. I usually got thrown out of them. And so at the end of the day, I never worked for MUFON again. Never been invited back. I think Denver was foolish enough years ago. They were great people. I think things have changed, right? Well, way ahead, the book all happened, and it was madness, and a divorce happened. I've done that twice in 2 countries. France is next. And, and I was a crazy bastard, man. It was crazy, crazy days. And I know some, real mentalists all over the world. And I've known some of the best characters, and I've known some of the greatest legends in this stuff that inspire me. I will say, and I know this guy gets, the guy's good with a chainsaw, and he hates this stuff. But I will say this, my inspiration always, look, Bob asked me to speak. I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared. My inspiration is a fella named Travis Walton. He was, you all have a focus in life, and I hope my son, really sees the value, because to me, these are heroes, and these are people that really, they inspired me to keep going. If they can do it, I can do it. And I don't mean any embarrassment, Travis, but, can I give you a round of applause? You're my hero. Thanks. And he's got a great lady in his life. He's very blessed, Dana. It's been an honor to meet you too, honey. This is what it's all about, and the good wishes and the fun. What's all this then? Well, as the time went on, life can get real heavy with this. I've been through the break-ins, the going through your house and by someone, and all the things people talk about, but all documented. I had to document everything I could, and this book, just this, on this one little airman first class, could go to a court if such things were described in a courtroom, and I'd win. And I would sweep the floor with any debunker, not physically, though I could do that, if they wanted to challenge this case. I'd wipe the floor with you. You wouldn't win. You wouldn't. So stay seated. You're not here anyway, are you? Because now, back in those days, all they do is write their crazy, character assassination and put it in a crazy journal somewhere or write letters. Nowadays, you got this evil thing that is the end of humanity, in my opinion, called the internet. And now they have fake names, and they go on and they run their mouths. So the internet has given a voice to some of the worst scumbags I've ever seen. Sorry, Bill Gates. I can't even send a text, man. All my friends go, text me, and I go, it's a phone, call me. Yeah, see the kids? England, man. They get run over by cars, man. They do. It's dreadful. So, and now my son, he's into all the wrestling and all that, and And that was all good buying wrestling figures and stuff. You know, it's kind of affordable and with the child support and all that. And now he wants a laptop, and I think he's getting mine because I almost threw it through a window a few weeks ago. Anyway, life goes on, and funny enough, I had to back up my stuff. I'm going to show you with this crazy device, if I don't mess it up, a few things I want to make. We're here. Let's go. It's these things. Oh, there it is. There's my certificate of training. That made me a security policeman. That's the real thing. What's blacked out is my Social Security number, so the feds don't try to steal my taxes. They can't get me now anyway. I'm overseas. Yeah, they can. This is funny. This is a letter, and my handwriting, this is a 19-year-old Larry Warren. I'm writing to my mother, Joanne, who is still with us. Still complaining that we didn't get her flowers on Mother's Day 78. Oh, sings in the supermarket. We got to go shopping and sings. That's my dear mom. And my family went through a lot with me with this, and they didn't ask for it. This is my APO, REF Bentwaters, a letter to my mother after this Disneyland on Acid thing happened to me. I called my mother the next morning from a base phone with Greg Battram. I was cut off, and I had immediately, long story, it's all there, it's out there, I identified myself as a troublemaker, a potential leak. And then it went to, spooks, all kinds of stuff, narco-hypnosis, all kinds of weird stuff. I'm not telling you this MyLab stuff, I'm telling you real stuff. And I was the first to say we're all going through it. I'm not saying the MyLab ain't real, but I'm saying here, well, if this is, go to court with this. This is one you can really track. This is a letter I'm sending my mother. That's the envelope. I'm a saver. I'm into that. It's dated January 6th, 1981. Dear Ma, Sam, and Mike is our cat. I lived with my mother. You know, my parents divorced, and my friends still say, man, it was so weird going to your house because, you know, your mother, we had the cat litter box in the kitchen, so he said breakfast was not a lot to look forward to. I asked her, why did we do that, you know? Oh, my mother, she always had a sign, the kids go before the cat does. Anyway, how's things at home? I hope you're good. I'm okay. Liar. This is a few days after Wacky Land. This is the end. Now, forgive the handwriting. I guess my English teachers were shite. What I'm doing is I talked to my mother, got cut off on the phone. She was aware of we saw a UFO on the base, blip, gone, and I'd reversed the charges. So at the end, oh well, gotta go for now. Say hi to everyone, and I'll call soon. Love, Larry. P.S. The picture of me is in London about a month ago. Tell, I think, a friend of mine, her daughter or something. I got a letter, and we'll write her. I never write. That was terrible. And tell Sam to write. It's my crazy sister, who's now a grandma. P.S. Now, here's the clever me. Ma, when I get home, I'll tell you the truth about the UFO. A cat in the mail, they read it. Oh, wow. Another fellow writes a letter on the 13th of January. His name is Charles I. Holt, and this is the memo he wrote to the Ministry of Defense as a courtesy, condensing the series of 3 nights into one, and the dates are incorrect. However, it was the first official thing that zipped out of the base to whomever, and because of me, this document, and much to probably Holt's displeasure, got into the public and identified his name with these events. So I'm writing to my mother about what we went through. About a week later, Mr. Holt is authoring this. The next is my mother, who has lovely handwriting to this day. This is dated January 21st, 1981. And to give you just a little flavor, Dear Larry, I received your first letter today. I was glad, all 7 pages. Wow, I don't think she ever could read it. Thank you for the picture, you look very good. As you know, Larry, the hostages were finally released yesterday. This is when Iran held them. It's a little timeline, isn't it, how far back it is? And at work, and they watched the TV last night when they were flown into Algiers and then on to Frankfurt. Of course, I was at Frankfurt at the base of the plane when they came off the plane. on a TDY with freedom. It was an honor of my life also. Of course, you know me, I cried with each family of the hostages as they talked with them and got their reaction on their release. There you go. There's also a mention of John Lennon had been shot, of the previous month. This is another part, the end of the letter. My mother's going on, catching me up with family, what's going on. Every Air Force guy or military guy abroad lives for these kind of letters. Well, enough of that. You certainly explained your situation with the UFO. And as you know, Larry, what was seen by others and yourself was just that, a UFO. It must have been quite an experience. Now, I want to make a point here to my detractors, and if you ever find them under the rocks and whence they live, the first person I chose to lie to within 4 hours of my involvement was my mother. Think about that. This is my posting to D flight. This is the flight that went through the third night. This is an actual document. It talks about guard mount, this, that, and the other. Because when I started out, they said I was never in the Air Force to begin with. Next, this is all my training that shows that I was ready to go on duty on 15 December 1980 and that my secret clearance had come through. It's all there. I had to round this up. This is my weapons issue, my positioning on the base, the weapon, you're assigned a weapon, that number lives with you while you're on the base. All kinds of things. And a lot of this didn't get in the book. I don't know what we were thinking. This is important because I'm a saver. Why do I have these documents when my documents, and Holt will verify this, are held by the National Security Agency? Still, not in St. Louis. There are veterans, there are officers here, people flew jets, heroes from Vietnam. Real heroes, I'm looking at a few, I see you. But you know what's real. I brought all this to Holt in 92 in DC. I went to see him. He didn't come hunting me down. And he said, well, I've got documents that say one thing. And I said, well, I have these. And he goes, how'd you get them? And I said, I stole them. Colonel Persky said, you're going to have trouble. You better take what you can and just blag them with the records. So I took all this. And a lot of these names, these guys, and what's blacked out again is Social Security numbers, but there's home addresses. We're in the 30th year now. We're trying to round up people. And each one of these guys are a participant in these events. You've never met them, but they're aware and they're in the wings waiting to see how it's going to go. This is valuable stuff. We were all put in different classifications after this. These are some of the real troublemakers, and I'm honored to head the list. Yep, we were removed from one AFSC and then a different training code status. Colonel Holt said to me in person, straight to my face, he said, none of this makes sense. The code's nothing. My re-enlistment code doesn't make sense. He said, when I called the Department of Defense and asked about you, he said, in all my years in the military, I never get a response as quick. These were all involved. Warren, Mason, Cullip, LaPlume, Lagana, Thompson, Henderson, another Thompson, Greg Battram. Many, many more. But these are the ranks where they started to move us into different things, keep us out of the way. This is because I had my my retinas burned by the experience I had, as did others. This is my appointment to RAF Lakenheath Hospital because of optical retinal burn exposure. This is dated, I believe there's a date, yippity-dippity-dippity, there's a date. It's just after the events. 10 January, forgive me, 10 January. So all this has fallen in line, There's officers here and there's friends of this individual. I need someone to answer me a question. This is my request for separation. I was working back line. I thought there were spooks all over. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. And again, I was identified as a troublemaker. Request for separation, Airman First Class Lawrence P. Warren. I wanted to get the hell off that base, as did many others. One guy cut his stomach up, man, and went crazy, and John Burroughs got him, and they chucked him out. That guy's Steve LaPlume, and he's ready to come and testify. I approve the honorable discharge of A1C Lawrence P. Warren from the United States Air Force to be effective on or about 15 May 81. I carefully reviewed his application and conclude that the intent of AFR 3910, yakety, 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 non-fulfillment of guaranteed enlistment trainee program has been met. I was not doing the job I was contracted. We had contracts. I wasn't drafted, you know. Approval of my request to separate from the service is in the best interest of himself and the United States Air Force. Now this is what, there's some people here that will know, because you know I was only an airman first class, not for long. Signed, now there was a man I have placed in these events, not out of malice, but because I was on his change of command, I was the guard assigned to him. I'm very familiar who he is. Signed, Gordon E. Williams, Colonel USAF, Commander. Now, if I'm not mistaken, a wing commander that deals with pilots and all would not handle, tell me if I'm wrong, I need to know this, an airman first class's discharge. Can I ask you, sir, what do you think of that? Don't make sense? It don't make sense. Okay, thank you. This is my honorable discharge. I got it. I bet they wish they could pull that one back. Boom. Lots of trouble with this stuff, medical stuff. This is hard to read. I won't go through it. I'm not a doctor, but New Britain General Hospital. I started hemorrhaging through the skin, 1984. I had a lot of problems. We lived with nightmares, all kinds of, we're all of us. This is not the Larry Warren Rhodes show. I'm a representative, hopefully, of others. The doctor came out, my ex-wife, my first wife was an occupational therapist at this particular hospital in Connecticut. And we went, I mean, I was just blowing blood right through the skin, weirdest stuff, had to heat up. And we went through a lot of tests and all this, and I get all these doctors giving me this bad look privately, and my wife's there. And they said, were you ever in the military? And I said, yes. And they said, were you in Vietnam? I said, no, I'm too young for that. They said like this, were you ever around a nuclear weapons? I said, yes, but not much. Well, they said, you were showing signs, he said, in my opinion, this is all his opinions and write-ups, of exposure to an unshielded nuclear device that we would normally see in 20 years, and this is 4 years. Now, you must imagine that all of us that were close to this phenomena over different nights are pretty goddamn scared as we're hitting 50. Are the third eye gonna grow here, or webbed feet? Well, I got them, but I mean, you know, other than that. It's scary, man. It's scary. So I'm just trying to give you a thing. I'm not doing a flying saucer story today, you know. This is more of that, you know, stuff. And it was an unnerving day. I don't know what that is. Controversially, there are, in my opinion, 3 landing sites in the forest. First nights, third nights. Halt is investigating not the first night's event on his tape, 2 nights later in the middle of the night. That was done the next morning. Halt is investigating a new site in the trees when we're called out to bring light-alls. See, it's taken a lot of years for the pieces to fit together. Halt is about 400 yards to my left. There is no way Charles Halt did not see what I saw. With all due respect, there is no way that Mr. Gordon Williams, our wing commander, who was a heavy-duty guy, would not have come out there or at least been notified about it. I say this with respect. I have respect for these people and their ranks and what they had to do and probably the pressure they're under. I don't have a pension at all. Dog food city when I'm 65. What that thing was I showed you. This is Capel Green. This is the thing I saw. Way over this way, to the left, is a farmhouse that Halt talks about. There was activity there, but with frankly what was going on in front of me, all filmed and photographed, I didn't look anywhere else. This has been analyzed by a real scientific lab, Springborn Labs, many times. I'm no scientist, but in the end, crystallized like an industrial microwave to a cone 5 feet deep. Whoever owns this field, when we were touring our book, they had a whole field of hemp, which looked like, you know, Cheech and Chong stuff, you know? Convenient, because there's a lot of news going out there. There's never been a crop in that field before or since. Weird stuff. Anyway, there's that. Let's see what's next here. 30-year reunion this year. A guy named John Burroughs, one of the important witnesses, is trying to get it together. But I've been around a long time. I want to share a letter with you, and then we're going to transition. This is a letter to the editor of the Air Force Times, Larry Bryant from Cause, suggested I do it. I wrote it 26 August 1985, sent it off. They never published it, but here's the actual letter. Nothing new under the sun. When I was on duty as an airman first class with the 81st Security Police at RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge, I happened to be one of the witnesses to events that remain disturbing to this day. The events known as the 1980 UFO encounter at Rendlesham Forest have left me in the middle of a controversy where I find that the Air Force ostensibly has washed its hands of the case and that the major news media generally have been uninspired to dirty their hands with it. To help me ease out of the middle, I ask that any Air Force Times readers with documentable evidence of the various events surrounding the case or evidence of active participation in the events contact me immediately so that in a united effort we might proceed with the necessary strategy for any upcoming congressional inquiry and FOIA litigation. With your sworn testimony, either as a voluntary submission or as a response to a subpoena, we can compel the government's full accountability on what exactly occurred on those very strange nights, actually it was wrongly written, in 1980. The adage, there's strength in numbers, certainly would apply to such a high visibility, multiple witness case like ours. I'm talking to the brothers. Now is the time to come forward, confidentially through me if you prefer, so that we can add your voice to mine in the appropriate forum. The government has the answers to the questions that we have been asking ourselves for the past 5 years, 30 years. Now is the time for answers. Let's separate fact from fiction. You can reach me through the editor of the Air Force Times. Of course, they were so brave, I'm sure that went in the skip. But I've been trying to do this, folks, all along. That's all I wanted. I commend John Burroughs, who doesn't live far away, and I commend him for his efforts and what he is doing and trying to do. I hope these new guys know what they're getting into. I really do. I don't wish any harm to come to them, their families, emotionally. They have enough. These are hurting units. Let's see what else we have here. The reason it was all worth it is this little guy standing next to me. You know, I'm portrayed as a victim, oh, poor Larry, this and that. Well, you know what? I've been through some hell. But a lot of people in this room have been through hell. But I'd do it all again, because I met this kid's mom when we toured this book. And I've learned more from this little 8, almost 9-year-old fella named Dennis. He's my mini-me. He's a gentleman. And he's got a lot of heart and he's got an open mind. And he goes, Daddy, am I famous like you? And I go, you'll probably be doing my gigs pushing me around a wheelchair. And the joy of my life. Joy of my life. And I hope if he gets anything from his old man, he loves looking at my old TV shows I've been on back in the early 80s and all, because he thinks of the hairdos and all. Just absolutely mad. He's a wonderful fella. He's the pride of my life. I would do it all again for him and all the youngins, the young people. Because, you know, we need young people, and I've met some great young people here. I really have. We're getting there. But that's my Dennis Warren, and he's a great fella. I hope you meet him someday. We, funny enough, you know, you can go on with this forever. I could do a Grateful Dead level 4 hours. As time went on, this book, there's an updated thing. You go to Cosimo, I was going to read them, but I have something more important to share with you, and someone very important to this case, I believe. A lot of statements. A lot of people wrote to us after the first edition of the book came out and said, dead on, thanks for what you're doing. I don't want my teeth kicked out like you've had yours, so we'll wait till it's safe. We need you, everyone here, to stop. You know, Roswell happened, obviously, and all, but God bless those guys. You know, it was a different era. You know, we were after Vietnam, you know, and the government was a little more questionable. You know, Nixon had been there. Haldeman, Ehrlichman, I mean, my mother was a saint. We had all that, so the world was different, and, you know, we don't buy the show. I love my country. I have a 4th of July party every year in England. We call it Let's Piss the Neighborhood Off party, and I fly the Stars and Stripes. But the English, you can't keep them away from the beer, so we get sold out. It's great. It's on 4th of July. It's all good. If you're from England, come on up, man. It's good. It's a biker do. It's been an honor, man, all this stuff. And I want to thank Bob Brown. We're not done yet, because I got something heavy coming. Obviously, in all these years, Rendlesham Forest, Bentwaters, or whatever, is not about Larry Warren. Larry Warren was the only guy mad enough, and I knew it was that important. And I thank God to my parents, my family, and my friends, that some don't have any knowledge of UFOs, for their support. I thank people like Bob and Terry Brown, who first invited me here 10 years ago, where I met my ex-wife, but who can blame her, Sue, and she is the great mother of my great son. So, you know, from bad comes good, from the dark to the light. And I know a lot of you guys always expected me kind of like a Keith Moon character and, you know, throwing TVs out the window of a hotel and going wacky. And, you know, I'm getting older and slowing down, but I know I have to represent myself probably a little better than I was. Because I used to want to run, I didn't want to be me with this anymore. But you can't be anything but you. You're stuck with it, because it's here. It's passion. And I do feel it again. And I see hope. On this 30th year of the Bentwaters incidents, Rendlesham Forest, we are trying, there's the thing called ego and a lot of hating going on. If we can get by this, we need your support. We need your help. We really do, to pull this off, because this could be a united front. And what are they going to do when you got 30 of us standing there going, you're wrong? Stars, stripes, the whole thing. We're there. And our testimony. I'm not even saying to Congress that. To me, they're all bums. I'm talking about for you. I don't care what they say. They don't need to disclose. I'm not a believer. I'm a knower. Raise a hand. Are you with me? Not just Rendlesham. It's over. I'm a knower. I nicked that from a dear friend of mine who's a madwoman, Sasha Christie in England. She's a soldier for Rendlesham. She's a mom of an army of kids and just a mad woman, but you gotta be. But she says, I'm a knower, not a believer. And I think there's a room full of them. Please be supportive. Spread the word on this case. Support the new witnesses when they come out, if you meet them at conferences in this country. And remember, they've all suffered, but just not public. And I pray they don't. I'll be kicking ass if anyone tries it with them. Now, at the end of the day, you know, I thank Bob and the Browns. Can we give a hand for this? You don't know, the Wizard of Oz is back here, man. The man behind the curtain. Can we give a hand for the crew that run this thing? They know, they hear you. They can see you, actually. Dave and Katie, stand up, you wild kids. Stand up. The joy of this week, one of them, is that these mad kids from England, I was invited to their wedding. They got married at Area 51 at the damn mailbox. Let's give them a hand. Dave is representative of the young blood in this field, and we need a lot of young blood. Encourage the youngins to read up on this. They got open minds when you can get them off the texting. Let them text the books. Let them do whatever, but we need them. There's hope, and he's a great young researcher from England. I think he's going to be on nerve pills when he gets back home after this mad week. Welcome to Disneyland on acid, brother. A lovely wife, all the best in your lives. We are all in this together. We always will be. At this point in time, because I am crap with timekeeping, here's my presentation, man. So his writing is as bad as it was in 1980. It's my honor. There's a gentleman here, Gary Hazeltine, and he has a police database in England, much like the Richard Haynes did with the pilots in this country and perhaps others. And it's really forward-thinking because English people, as much as I love them, my son's one of them, tend to be a bit more conservative than us mad Yanks. But they're more opening up now, and he's a police detective. He ain't just a guy on the beat, he's a detective. And I've met Gary a few times, and I had the pleasure really of spending time with Val, his wife, and Gary throughout this week. Another part of Gary you might not know is that he is the new direction of researchers in this case. He's brought a very open mind. He has brought a detective sensibility. He has been, well, I'm going to leave this to him. I hope my timing's right. It's my honor to invite to the stage to share with you what's going on very currently. Detective Gary Hazeltine from Leeds, England.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just got a technical issue here while we get rid of this. That's not the right word, and we bring up my presentation.
I'll be back.
He'll be back. Right, okay. Just give me 1 second. He's finished a little bit earlier, but that's fine. Okay. He's already introduced me, so I ain't going to mention anything else. I'm a police detective in the UK, 20 years service, 15 years as a detective, still serving officer. I have a big interest in UFOs. My interest in Rendlesham started quite a long time ago, but it was only until a couple of years ago that I actually actively could get involved. And through a strange kind of set of circumstances, I engineered that. So when people say you can't change your own destiny, well, I think you can. Okay, what happened for me was basically 2.5 years ago, I was approached by the US History Channel to make a documentary about my police database, UK police officers. And negotiations continued, and then as time went on, near to the filming schedule, they said, oh, we're flying across on this date. And I said, well, are you just coming across for me, or are you bound to be doing something else? And they said, oh, yeah, we're doing Rendlesham Forest. Wow, I thought. And I said, who are you getting involved in that? And he said, oh, we're bringing Charles Holt over. Ding! So I thought, yes, I must get involved here, because I had a long-held interest. And my interest stemmed from the fact that between 1983 and 1989, I served in the Royal Air Force as a police officer and effectively worked for 3 of my 6 years' service on 2 nuclear weapons bases, doing exactly the same job that Larry Warren did for the Americans. So I have an intimate knowledge of the way those bases worked. And I'd always known that there must be a lot more witnesses who were involved in this case because of my unique background. So, having mentioned that to this producer for the History Channel, I said, please, please let me get involved. And they said, oh, we like this. Yeah, you can ask Holt some questions. And if it all plays well, I'll show you a clip that's never been seen anywhere other than England. And it's only been shown once in England in October when I did this presentation, of Holt up at the tower in the weapons storage area. That is a little clip that I took. It's not actually owned by the History Channel, it's owned by me, because I took a little video recorder, and at the top of the tower I managed between takes, as it were, to ask him a pertinent question, which he answers. So hopefully that will play. Okay. I literally don't have long to present this, in the sense that this presentation took about 70 minutes when I played it in Ireland for the first time, okay, in October. And now I've literally 35 minutes. So it will be a bit fast. You've already seen that. That's the classic article, the News of the World article that announced this case to the public. And it appeared in October 1983. This incident took place in 1980. So what happened to those 3 years? The reality is, this was never supposed to get out. It was never supposed to see the light of day. That is the key thing. And we'll talk about Larry Warren in a minute. Okay, Larry's already shown you. That's arguably the most famous, or certainly one of the most famous documents in the world, in my opinion, on UFOs. Because of the rank of the person who makes that report, and the fact that he alludes to 2 nights on that memo, definite UFOs, and he himself says, I was a witness in one of the paragraphs. The deputy base commander of a weapons storage area facility, and I will say nuclear weapons, and I shall go on to say why. As I say, pray seeing things that I've said. I served at 2 bases in my Royal Air Force duties of 6 years. The first posting I had was RAF Honington in Suffolk, which is actually not a million miles away from Rendlesham Forest. Okay, I'm going to move on now. Why Rendlesham? Why Rendlesham? Well, I'll ask another question. Why Roswell? Let's see if we can think out of the box here. In all the world, in all the places, why Roswell in 1947? Simple answer is It was the first atomic base. Okay, the first atomic bomber group. Is that a coincidence? Now let's look at Rendlesham. The political situation is totally lost in the background of this case. But in 1980, as already been mentioned by Larry, there was the American hostages, Iran. Political tensions were very high in the Middle East. But what was even more of concern is the political situation in Poland. As Poland moved towards a democratic state, and Lech Wałęsa, Polish troops, Soviet troops, this is the Cold War, Soviet troops in their hundreds of thousands were massing on the Polish border. And the world was like this. And it could go nuclear, it could be World War III. It seems hard to believe that now, but in 1980, this is what was happening bang at the time of the Rendlesham Forest incident. And why Rendlesham Forest? Because of illegal nuclear weapons. That's what I'm going to say. This is not what Holt's going to say, but this is what I'm going to say, and I will back that up. In my view, this is a clear case about nuclear weapons. And this is why Larry and all the others are really victims of a situation. The real truth of this case is that new UFOs made repeated visits to check out the storage area at Bentwaters and Woodbridge. Why? Because they shouldn't have had the nuclear arsenal that they had in that place. It broke all the weapons treaty agreements. They shouldn't have been there. Let's look at it from a UFO point of view. Maybe there is a benign interest in our species, and maybe they just thought, wow, what's going on in the world here? These shouldn't be there, and maybe they are there. We'll go take a look. Okay, bit of background photograph. I said about nuclear weapons. Holt doesn't need to say it. He can't say it. Williams can't say it. Neither confirm or deny. You'll never get that. The pensions are at stake, blah, blah, blah. I understand all of that. But I can say it because I know and I worked on those bases. Look at that photograph closely because it's going to come back. This is taken at RAF Larbrook in 1996. This was a nuclear storage area that I worked on personally. And look at me, I'm in my t-shirt and my shorts. What's going on? This was a highly secure place, but the base had closed in 1993. The weapons storage area was not being used. However, I was able to go back, family visit as it were, look back at my old aunt in Germany. This is in Germany near the Dutch border. Okay, I went back and I said, well, do you mind if I just sign on to the base and have a little ride round for nostalgia? And they said yes, and I said, what about the weapons storage area? Oh, that's closed. Is there any chance I could go near that? They said, oh, you can go in it if you want. I went, what? Because this is a highly secure place, and it was unbelievable. And 30, perhaps 35 people would be guarding that facility on any one shift. Because I'd worked there for 2 years, 2.5 years. So it was quite strange. I've already mentioned, I've taken it out of sequence. Came to fruition and I met Holt. This is the first time we met. This is at the hotel ahead of the filming, the night before the film had started, and this is in December 2007. I'm coming back to the nuclear weapons, don't forget. Okay, first thing I did, I've worked with Holt effectively for 2 years now on his version of events that has occurred. His version of events. And he is very, very important because he was the deputy base commander of what I believe is a nuclear facility. And his rank, if this is ever to be made into a film, which is what I've been working on with him to develop a screenplay, to get this out to a much wider audience than the people in this room who are interested in the subject, I am really trying to bring this to the outside world of people who don't have a clue. But if this was done right, the implications and the way it can open up people's opinions about this subject, it really could be a major case. Okay. I spent 4 months at the start of that collaboration process of researching everything I could, every documentary, every book, everything I could find about Rendlesham Forest that's in the public domain. And at the end of that, I created a detailed timeline of what I considered the start of the incident, which is really the 25th, the first night, 25th, going into the 26th overnight, is the first night, really to the end of the incident when the MOD received that letter from Holt and go, whew, don't like this. I have, because I wasn't expected to do a presentation on this, I haven't got my papers with me, but what I did do is that timeline on A4 sheets I stuck together, handwritten, and what I would normally do is I'd have somebody out here to stretch it out. And believe me, it's about 9 feet long. So much for the lighthouse theory. When I saw Holt for that first time, I sat in the pub with him for 4 hours. This was before the filming started, and it was a bit like me meeting Elvis, if you're interested in the subject. And I sat down and I asked him everything, because I'm a detective, and I was curious about the case. And at the end of that night, I said, would you allow me to collaborate with you, or would you collaborate with me if I write a screenplay? Will you answer any question that I may give? And he said yes. So that was lucky for me. Okay, some important things about the timeline and what has been added by Holt. There's always been a lot of confusion in the Holt memorandum about the date of his night. Okay, well, in the end, he's admitted human error. He made an error. He wrote that not the day after. He wrote it about a week later, 10 days later. Okay, he made an error. Unusual, but he made an error, and he admits to that. So the first night is overnight on the 25th to the 26th into Boxing Day. And the second night, Holt's night, according to Holt, is the 27th into the 28th overnight. We shall talk about an alleged third night, or whether it was the second night, a bit later. One of the things that Holt is known for is that when he went out there with his team of men, he had a little micro cassette with him. And it's, for those familiar with the case, it lasts 18 minutes, and there are many transcripts available on the internet. Okay, on the internet, and you print it out, it's flat. It's interesting, but it's flat. It doesn't give any depth of feeling to what was going on in his head at the time. So I said, please print it off. I'm sending you a good copy of the transcript. Print it off, and please annotate it with your notes on what you were thinking at the time as you went through these little bits that you were putting onto the cassette. And he put some very interesting things on there, which I'll go on to in a second. Holt was always said, and when he was interviewed, you can watch this on TV programs, he'd always say, oh, there was me, there was Lieutenant Bruce England, there was Sergeant Neville's, and Sergeant Ball, and there was another guy. He'd always be very vague about who the other guy was. Well, in the end, it was pretty obvious who the other guy was, because he was actually on the transcript of the tape. It was Adrian Bustinza. But I believe he was vague because Adrian Bustinza has some recollections that are dissimilar to his, and he differs in certain areas, and he is similar to Larry Warren's account, which I'll go on to shortly. Okay, so I think he actively distanced himself, but he did confirm that the fifth person in his group was Adrian Bustinza. The transcript notes, the most interesting thing is, for those of you who are familiar with the case, at one point, his group, his team of 5, see a UFO, and it approaches them at high speed, and from a height of about 2,000 feet, this is information he's given me, 2,000 feet, it stops and hovers in silence above them and shines a beam down, like a laser beam, down at his feet. Wow. That's pretty good in itself. Okay? All the others verify that, apart from Bruce England, who nobody to date has been able to be found in order to talk about this. Everybody else in that group has confirmed that this occurred. Okay? Similarly, later on, as the transcript goes on, there is mention of beams being shone in the direction of the weapons storage area. Holt now confirms that he personally heard, because he had access to 3 radio frequencies, he heard the man in that tower on that storage area going on that there are beams being shone down into the storage area. So that's a confirmation. And he also, from his distance, he couldn't see exactly where they were going, but it would appear to have been where the storage area would be. Okay? So it's a very interesting tie-up. But what he said is that when the beam came down at his feet, he makes an interesting comment, and he says something like, and I've not got it with me, but this is a subquote, but basically what he will say is, are they trying to communicate with me when that beam is being shone down at his little group? Are they? Who's they? It infers intelligence, that this is a real event, something is probing the situation. Okay, the beam's down into the storage area. One of the things that he writes in the margin is, we must check the weapons for degradation. Do conventional weapons degrade? I would say not. So, a little clue there that we are talking about nuclear weapons. He came back and he said to Williams, we should get the ordnance checked. Ordnance, what was in that storage area. Okay, let's look at the question of nuclear weapons, because it's something that is really at the key of this. Like I said to you, Holt, Williams, General Williams, they're never going to put the pensions on the line and say, yes, there is, or there isn't. Because if they did, it would create an international storm, and it really would be on CNN front page. We'd like that, because it's all UFO related, but in reality, it ain't going to happen. It's too much to lose. And if they were to admit that, governments would then be, well, what are all these treaties, the SALT treaties? You broke them. Why? We couldn't do it. Two sources to me confirmed that there were nuclear weapons there. And more there than anywhere else in the rest of Britain that shouldn't have been there. But the detail, my argument to say that they were there, based on my prior knowledge, is based on this. Two things. The number of officers involved in the security of that site on those shifts when these incidents occurred, and the layout of the site. This was taken, my photograph, taken as we went in for that documentary. So this is taken as we're walking up the tower. I think it's at 80 feet high, and this gives a basic layout of a weapons storage area. That would be the entrance gate in the middle where the arrow is pointing. If you look on the right-hand side, you will see two arrows, an outer and inner fence. These were generally microwaved. There were like no-go zones. Okay, so that from the outside there was a sterile area, and then you're into the weapon storage area. The tower itself is pertinent because it's 360-degree vision. When I took this, the trees are probably at 60 feet high. They weren't allowed to get probably more than 40 feet high at the time. So they had a clear 360, and that wasn't for for UFOs. There was always this implied Soviet threat, and they used to say to us when I was on those sites, oh well, somebody could come down on a hang glider, a little team of specialists, and get into the site. But the whole point is it had a complete 360. Look at the picture of this site. Okay, we have a blast wall. Bunkers, larger bunker, and from the perspective of the photograph, the tower itself looking out down what's called the hot row. We don't call conventional weapon areas hot rows. Hot row is a colloquial term for nuclear weapons in the forces. This is my photograph from before, and now look at it, the spent water storage area. Does it look similar? Tower in exactly the right position. Blast wall in exactly the right position. Smaller bunkers in the right position. Larger bunker in the right position. Is that nuclear weapons base? It's an exact tie-up to the ones I worked on. And like I said, you prove this by the numbers involved. On a conventional storage dump, conventional bombs, you might have nobody in the Air Force. You might have one or two airmen guards on exercise. It's fenced off, obviously, and there is security on the gate, but basically not a lot of security during normal time. However, on a nuclear facility, you will have in excess of 30 people. On the nights in question, we're looking at 38 on each night for Bentwood Waters and Woodbridge. And that's just those that are related to the sites and patrols that are related to the site. There were other law enforcement officers on who were nothing to do with the site. 38. You prove it through the numbers. Oops, I'm going to have to move back now. I might need some technical help here. Somebody from the back, please. What I want to do there, because I've not got the clicker. Has anybody got the clicker back there? I want to go back to that clip of Holt, so I need to go back 2 slides. Yeah, no. So forward the next one. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Yeah, okay, nice one. And we'll play a clip. Thank you. This is the clip of Holt, a question I posed to him at the tower. Hopefully you can hear it. Louder, please.
Would you point in the direction of the where you think the lighthouse was?
Can we get the noise louder?
There somewhere, but I can't see now because of the tree line. Okay. The trees have grown. All right. Now I've always maintained that there was another witness. Yes, there definitely was.
Can we go louder?
Actually, there were many witnesses. The tower operator, I've been in contact with him recently. He initiated actually, and okay, we'll come down in just a minute.
Because this is a Mac computer, I'm not that familiar with the layout.
He saw the beams of light coming down in the weapons storage area, and the crew on the ground, the security personnel on the ground, did see the beams too. Brilliant, thank you.
All right, that, in a sense there, I don't know if you heard that, but I'll repeat that at the back. What is there is I've pressed him from the tower. He's shown me the direction from the tower as to where, and so when you see him pointing, he's pointing to where the activity was taking place on the night when he went out, the farmer's field. He's sort of pointing in that direction. And basically what he's saying is, yes, there was a witness who was in that tower, if not more, who joined him, because I'd be up there if I was on that site. First place I would go, I'd be up that tower seeing what the hell's going on. Human nature. So I think there were lots of people up in that tower. The point is, the guy in the tower, he confirms that there was another witness. And he confirms that the witness was saying that there was beams being shone down into that nuclear facility. Why would a UFO do that? Because it knew that there were nuclear weapons there.
Colonel,
How's
do you want to speak?
we'll repeat this.
Purely for my record.
Magic.
All right, just go through what you just told me. Okay. Right, we're at the top of this weapons storage area. This is for my benefit only. Would you point in the direction of the where you think the lighthouse was? The lighthouse should have been over in there somewhere, but I can't see now because of the tree line. Okay.
Trees have grown.
All right. Now I've always maintained that there was another witness. Yes, there definitely was another witness. Actually, there were many witnesses. The tower operator, I've been in contact with him recently. He initiated actually, and okay, we'll come down in just a minute. Sorry.
That's the History
He
Channel
told me
crew.
in certain terms, he saw the beams of light coming down in the weapons storage area, and the crew on the ground, the security personnel on the ground, did see the beams too. Brilliant. Thank you.
So it's just a little clip, but it ties him down, because that's what I want him to do on camera, tie him down. Because when documentary companies make their documentaries, you can get a hell of a lot of filming, and they leave a lot of the good stuff out, because they're following their own agenda. Right, I want to move on to the next one, so let's see. There we go. Here we go. So the numbers game we've discussed. I'll leave it for you to decide, but I think it's quite conclusive to me. These are some of the players from the first night. Don't really have time to go into what happened, but these are the pictures. Penniston's the guy who actually went forward with Burroughs on the first night, the night of the 25th into the Boxing Day, and they eventually follow the object until it lands on the ground. They come across it in a clearing, and Penniston moves forward and actually walks around it for 20 minutes. It's a 3-meter high pyramid, triangular base. He takes symbols. These are what he drew. I don't know if, I think Larry showed them up, but these are the actual things that he drew. That's the craft on the left. And these were the strange symbols. Well, now you can see it on the big screen. Did you see it on the big screen before? Right, okay. So these are what he actually saw. And he had 20 minutes. And the funny thing is as well, he took photographs as well. But mysteriously, they all came out fogged when he took them in to get them developed. Coincidence, that. This is the depressions that were left. 9.8 feet, triangular pattern. 6 weeks after the event, a guy called Vince Thurkettle, when the skeptics really were frightened by this story, this forester, Vince Thurkettle, said, "Oh, they look like animal marks to me." And that story has lasted, even now, gets repeated virtually in every documentary. 6 weeks after the event, 6 weeks after a murder scene, things would have obviously been disturbed, and this guy makes one idle little comment, the press latch onto it to devalue the case. The lighthouse theory that people often quote in the documentaries is ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Penniston, the night after he'd had his sighting, as it came daylight, he was told, "Go back, see if you can find this landing site in daylight." He found it. But what he also did, and he didn't tell anybody, is he went out there with some plaster of Paris and got the moulds from the 3 indentations, because he wanted some physical evidence that he wasn't mad, that he had seen what he'd seen. And these are the casts, one of which was actually stolen on a mid-flight years later, the only thing taken from his suitcase on an internal flight in the US. Coincidence? Okay, there was ground impressions, so there is physical evidence to this. Background radiation was 10 times higher, confirmed by Nick Pope in a documentary. Nick Pope worked at the MOD for 3 years at their MOD UFO desk. Okay, second night, now confirmed. The error is corrected, 27th into the 28th. Okay, I'm not going to go through all this, but this is pertinent. I came to the edge of the field. People, if aware of the case, will know that they follow this red UFO, this winking light that's dripping molten material that doesn't seem to leave a trace. They follow it through the woods, eventually come to a farmer's field. This is the farmer's field as it looks in 2007, because I took the photograph. And this is the thing. Okay, let's look right on the horizon. On the right-hand side of the farmhouse is the lighthouse. Way, way off, about 6-7 miles. In every documentary virtually ever made, the lighthouse gets the blame for all what everybody sees. Crazy. But this is why I pinned him down, because on the edge of that field, this is the perspective, or slightly to the right of it, and I said, right, show me where the object was in relation to the farmhouse. Of course, the object, the size of a car, red, it's the first time we really clearly saw it, was to the left of the farmhouse, about 15 feet off the ground. And it was casting such a reflection into the farmer's windows that it looked like the house was on fire. But look at the position, low to the ground, left of the farmhouse. Was it the lighthouse? This is from the horse's mouth. No. So how comes the lighthouse theory has existed all this time? I don't know. That's the media for you. That's just a photograph showing the outer markers of the triangular scene. The beam down to the ground. Okay. The alleged third night. Or was it the second night? And this is where we get major conflict. I've got 7 minutes of my presentation left because we're on a tight schedule. Suffice to say that Holt has always believed that Larry Warren, who he initially said was never part of it, for years, and then accepted that he was when he proved through papers that he got the papers, he was newly at the base, and he had been signed off, and he was on a peripheral role. Okay, it would appear to me, and what Holt has always said, is that people were interrogated to minimize the impact of this first incident, of the Penniston night in particular, and Holt's witnessed activity. How do you do that? I believe, and Holt has always believed, and the premise of the screenplay is that somebody messed with the minds of some of the men, not just Larry, Adrian Bustinza, perhaps half a dozen others, who were interrogated and planted false memories based on a mixture of truth and a mixture of implanted false memories. Larry Warren is a good guy, and I'm going to talk about Larry in a minute. He's a really good guy. He's a genuine guy. He has been, throughout his life, screwed up, and I don't think you mind me saying that. It has affected his life tremendously, and still does to this day. And for anybody who's involved in this, they are all victims. So, based on Holt's testimony, it would appear that there is this conflagration of information. Warren gets picked up and remembers Holt being there, remembers the field. But then there's this wild diversity with Larry's story seeming at odds with everybody else's. But somewhere in amongst that there is real truth, and Larry is not lying in my opinion. That's the guy. This guy Without him, nobody would have been aware of this case. So we owe him a debt of gratitude. In June of this year, as I tried to get the script to announce it to the public, and this is important, with 2 minutes left, I'm going to read this to you. This is what Holt, I asked him for a definitive quote on the subject, almost 30 years on. I wish to make it perfectly clear that the UFOs I saw were structured machines moving under intelligent control and operating beyond the realm of anything I have ever seen before or since. I believe the objects that I saw at close quarter were extraterrestrial in origin, and that the security services of both the United States and England were and have been complicit in trying to subvert the significance of what occurred at Rendlesham by use of well-practiced methods of disinformation. We're on with the script. We're trying to get people interested. This really does have the ability to change the wider world on this subject if it's done right. And I make you a promise, as the person who has written that script that is endorsed by Holt, that I will not sell out just for the cash and let them tear it up like they did with parts of Travis Walton's story, who is a real hero. For all the people there at Rendlesham, they've all been victims. Their lives have all been scarred because of duplicitous nature of the way governments work. This is really about nuclear weapons. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Well, ladies and I feel like get smart. I want to thank you all for getting up, and I don't know if, is this working? That's how the cold is. I want to thank Gary, really, I mean, for taking this forward, because it is quite a thing to take on this event. It is not easy for an outsider to come in, but he's bringing, I think, brilliant things to it. I'm honored he agreed to share the stage with me. It's a pleasure to, it's not about me as it is, it's about all of us. We're all in it together, and I'd be honored to go out, start this great last day with great speakers coming up. I'm here to yak with you if you want, but let's go out with a song a friend of mine who's no longer with us wrote about the case in 1989. You might recognize it, the late great Stevie Ray Vaughan. You can talk over it.
Gary Hasseltine, Larry Warren, thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.